Once again, thank you and good morning, good afternoon almost to everybody. Professor Klarin should have first presentation, but since he's still connecting, I propose that our colleague from Mali Lošinj, Katarina, has her first presentation concerning how have they developed the measuring of sustainable tourism in their destination, which I may say is a pioneer project in Croatia and in Europe, we can also say, with such great number of indicators. Katarina has been leading this project from the start, I think. And Tomislav, are you now working? No, still not. So Katarina is I believe, one of the best persons in Croatia to answer questions concerning going through the indicator process in the destination in Croatia. So Katarina, you can start.
Thank you very much, Izidora, and for the great introduction you gave me. As Professor Klarin is still waiting, we wanted him to begin with the presentation, giving some introduction to the sustainable tourism and indicators. Oh, here you are.
It's not working good.
It's not working good.
Still not. Okay.
No.
Perhaps Katarina, you can proceed.
Share screen. I will share with you my presentation. Just a second to put it on full screen. Okay. Okay, so as said, we in Tourist Board of Mali Lošinj started with this project, indicators tourism, European Tourism Indicator System, and now I will begin with some as our destination it is. So here we are, Lošinj in numbers. Number of inhabitants 8,116. Accommodation structure that we have is in total capacity of 22,395 beds, which goes to hotels 13%, camps 42, private accommodation 29, and other accommodation 14.8%. In overall overnight stays, we had in 2019 2.3 million overnight stays and 300,015 guests per year. These are, of course, numbers from last year, as I said, because in this year, during the COVID crisis, we had also very good results. More than we expected, 56% of overnight stays of the last year and 48% of arrivals. Here is also pointed out our direct tourism employment, which is 37.6%, and relative contribution of tourism to the destination's economy, 36.28%. Also, I would like to point that we have a good public and private cooperation and partnership, and we wanted to put our destination towards sustainable and responsible tourism. Here's a big slide with lots of informations, but I will try to point out the most important of them. For instance, back in 2012-13, in our master plan and strategies of tourism development, we focused on building our destination and its image as a destination of sustainable and responsible tourism. Back in 2013, it was really a challenge in which way and with what tools could we measure our destination. In that moment, the European Commission launched this European Tourism Indicator System for sustainable destinations. And here in Tourist Board and with the cooperation of the town of Mali Lošinj, in cooperation with Mr. Marković, which is PhD on Institute for Tourism in Zagreb, we started to measure all the indicators that were given by the toolkit from the European Commission. Back then, Mali Lošinj as a destination was the first destination in Croatia that successfully participated in this pilot project with more than 130 indicators. The mandatory were, for example, I think 60, but we wanted to measure with other supplementary that were actually specific to our destination, as a number of children in kindergartens and in schools, number of parking places, and other indicators that were for our destination specified. After the pilot phase, there was in Brussels this ceremony of awards where we received an award for sustainability and accessible tourism management, specifically for this wide and depth of the data collected on the practices of sustainable tourism on the island. After the project was reviewed by the European Commission, they prepared a new toolkit of indicators with 43 of them in 4 categories: destination management, economic value, social and cultural impact, and environmental impact. By 2019, Mali Lošinj collected data for, I would say, 90% of mandatory indicators in these 5 consecutive years. We didn't collect those indicators that were hard to get the information, and also what we thought it is not as that much important for our destination, such are these indicators that are related to one-day visitors. When we talk about roles of ITIS, I would say that the most important side of ITIS is for sure this instrumental role. So the direct use of information as an input for policy making and implementation. In our case, in order to accomplish this instrumental role, we adopted the ITIS document on our town's council of the town of Mali Lošinj, and it became some kind of founding document with mandatory measuring and comparison of indicators in previous years. Here, I just pointed out some of the benefits that are from ITIS: monitoring, managing, enhancing the sustainability of the tourism destination, tracking destination performance, improved information for decision making, as I said earlier, do the benchmarking among destinations that are similar to your destination, support for tourism stakeholders, and so on. Here we have the structure, so I wanted just for you to see how is structured this toolkit for ITIS in 4 categories: so destination management, economic value, social and cultural impact, and environmental impact. For each of these 43 indicators, in the toolkit you have which data you have to collect and how to calculate the indicator. So the toolkit gives you how to calculate the indicator, and the toolkit can be downloaded on the webpage of the European Commission. Here, through the next few slides, I'm just going to present you which indicators we are collecting. Here are all written indicators, and the green one are those ones that we decided to keep measuring after these 5 years. So in these 5 years, we measured all of them, 43, and then now after 5 years we decided to minimize and to go on approximately around 20-25 indicators that we think that are important to our destinations. These indicators include surveys with local residents, with tourists and enterprises, communication with local, regional, and national firms like our Croatian electricity company, Jadrolinija, which is Croatia's largest shipping company for maritime transport and passengers and vehicles, National Bureau of Statistics, local company for waste and water, and so on. Here are all the indicators that are pointed out. So you see social and cultural impact, environmental impact that is mostly considered for waste, water and electricity, percentage of tourists that and visitor use different modes of transport to arrive to island, and then when they arrive to destination, what kind of transport do they use on the destination. As there are lots of indicators and we don't have that much time, I just chose few of them of each category here in this table set, so you can see in which way do we collect this data. For example, this is a table with two indicators that are regarding tourism satisfaction with the relevant informations about source of data, data collection time, responsible institution, and so on. Here, as for the measurement of tourism satisfaction, during the years, we had two methods. First, in 2014 until 2016, we had online surveys of the tourist board. These were the surveys through SurveyMonkey. And then in 2017 was Thomas Summer was held by the organization of Institute of Tourism and Ministry of Tourism, where Mali Lošinj Tourist Board, we also expanded the regular sample of that was given from the Institute to 400, so we could have greater credibility for the results. Usually the data are valid for 2 years. Indicator regarding economic value and social cultural impact, where resident satisfaction with tourism in their destination is also pointed out. Also conducted a local population survey through the SurveyMonkey online in 2019. We wanted to revise the survey, and we went with the practice of interviewers that were here on Lošinj, so we had a better method of collecting data. Few also indicators regarding environmental impact. It is always very interesting to focus on three key elements of environmental impact, which is electricity, water, and waste. Here we have actually the comparison of consumption of residents and tourists regarding these three elements, where water and electricity, for example, tourists spend more. It is mostly explained because of the hotels and other big enterprises, and on the other side they make less waste, also because in private accommodation it is difficult to separate this amount of waste which is generated by the resident and by tourists. So regarding this environmental impact, it is just the impact of the environment is certainly the section which interests us also the most, also in terms of energy consumption and waste production. In fact, our goal is to put this consumption in a ratio that some of our limits are in the use of these resources, so that we can better obtain the figures and interpret and understand what zone of utilization we are in. Here I just pointed out from who we were given these informations, and then we calculated them by ourselves. Given all these informations, what about future of ITIS? After the pilot phase, which I said earlier was finished, the future and development of ITIS actually depended on the destinations and how actually can be legitimized afterwards, because the European Commission didn't go onwards with this project. First idea was within next tour, where we tried to establish the ITIS destination committee, which would have two main goals. First was to capitalize the experience of measuring and monitoring sustainable tourism performances at destination level using a common methodology and tool, online platform, which would enable then the data entry, and the platform could calculate the indicator by default formulas. And the second one was to compare and do the benchmarking among destinations. Of course, unfortunately, due to circumstances back then in 2016-17, the idea of this committee was not established and didn't work out. So every destination in some kind of view was left for itself to make a decision where to go further with this project. Our decision was obviously to go further. Through years, we collected a very representative amount of indicators with continuity, which is also important. We have participated in numerous conferences on sustainable development as an example of good practice, like here today. In that manner, in 2018, also we were a part of MITOMED Plus online platform, which main objective is to enhance the sustainability and responsibility in maritime and coastal tourism. That was and it still is the project's main goal. Through this project, which is B2B Plus, was established this online platform. I had out here on this presentation just few print screens from their web page and from this online platform page. The platform enables few things actually. So you have a visible destination profile, you have the indicators set, you have an explanation for each indicator, how to measure it and how to calculate it. You can recognize your own progress or setback, and after everything you can do the benchmarking. So here's the print screen of our destination profile, where you can see some of the key elements, informations of your destination. Here is the indicators set, where you fill out those indicators that you have the data on. Here we have the methodological data for specific indicators. So each indicator is explained how to measure and how to calculate it. And at last, the benchmarking you can do among destinations. Here I put Larnaca district, Cyprus, just because an island. So it is always better to do some kind of benchmarking within similar destinations. At the end, we are coming to the end of this presentation. I will show you a short video, just 1 minute, about Lošinj. Lošinj Outdoors is the name of the video, which in addition of showing the beauties of Lošinj, an active vacation, it is actually an example of sustainability through the aspect of involving local people in filming this video, through the cameramen, through the actors, through the local people and others that are participating. Now I will try just to put this video on. Just a second to see. Okay, this was our video I wanted to show you. I hope you have seen it. Once again, thank you for your attention. Hope that the presentation was interesting for you. It is a little bit difficult in 10 minutes to put everything out, but if any informations are needed, you can put questions here in the section questions and answers, or you can directly contact me by my email. Thank you.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, finally. Thank you very much. I apologize. I had some technical problems with my computer. I could not connect, but now probably it works. Izidora, Katarina, should I continue because I should give my presentation before your presentation? Is it okay? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I will then share my presentation, which I should give it previously. I didn't hear your introduction, so just to point out some of our views, just to introduce myself, I'm Tomislav Klarin. I work at University of Zadar, Department of Tourism and Communication Studies as assistant professor. My interests are sustainable tourism development and tourism management. I suppose that you at the beginning you found the purpose of our webinar, but just to point out that we wanted to emphasize the concept of sustainable tourism and as a really and the only way for success of a tourism destination. And certainly we wanted to emphasize the need of measuring and monitoring tourism development by using sustainable tourism indicators. So I should give a short introduction, give some thoughts about the concept of sustainable tourism, and to introduce in the indicators and methodologies for measuring and monitoring sustainable tourism. But the focus of three of us was to give examples of good practices, and I saw that Katarina Golubović did it really well, and altogether with Tourism Board of Mali Lošinj. I saw some of you gave questions in category Q&A, so please continue. We can discuss it later. I'm sure that we are aware that tourism has become a global social, economic, and ecological phenomenon, and its impacts are seen all around. These economic impacts are mostly related to some positive aspects, but more and more we see a lot of social, cultural, and ecological negative aspects and negative impacts. In order to reduce it, in order to control that negative, but also to amplify the positive impacts of tourism, every tourism destination has to plan and control its development. I can also illustrate it very simply. Every destination has to decide what is exciting or boring for their visitors, for their tourists, or what they want to be in the future, or which is more attractive. You can see these three pictures is the same place, but they can decide what is more attractive, or they can decide what approach they can choose. Approach like tourism is a global phenomenon, or they can choose approach that they have to plan and control tourism like an industry. I like to share these data for Las Vegas and the data that are showing that Las Vegas is doing tourism as an industry which has to be planned and controlled. And finally, how is possible to reach that point of saturation, and how to avoid this point of saturation where in destination many negative impacts of tourism are seen and obvious. It's very simple to describe this because tourism destination acts like a tourism product, and every tourism destination has its own tourism life cycle. It starts with phase of exploitation and involvement and in tourism market, then proceeds with the phase of development. This phase of development phase is practically critical because in that phase, tourism destination has to plan and control its development. And it's very important to use several different tourism indicators which could direct its progress, and which could also be in aim to not to reach that critical range of carrying capacity, because in that situation tourism destination could enter in the phase of stagnation, be unattractive, and have more and more negative impacts. To illustrate, I put an example of 8 urban destinations in the Republic of Croatia. As you can see, there are 4 different tourism indicators showing different level of tourism development. So we have to have different approach when managing Krapina as a destination in the lower level of tourism development, or Mali Lošinj or Rovinj, which are on the highest level of tourism development. So according to this data and these indicators, we can see different pressure on destination. For example, here tourism density, intensity on or functionality. Like I said in the beginning, there are obviously a lot of positive impacts of tourism, but tourism generates also negative impacts of tourism. I listed some of them, and just to see, this list could be very large. More and more there are seen social, cultural, and ecological negative impacts of tourism. Concept of sustainable development is concept which was made more than 30 years ago, and it seems like everybody talks about the sustainability, but very little is done, especially on the global level. From the very beginning, tourism was very interested for this concept, and in fact, it adopted the main principles and main goals of the concept of sustainable development in order to reduce that negative impacts of tourism, and in order to protect society, economy, and also ecology. During the last 30 years, I will say that concept of sustainable tourism has been changing and adapting according to different stages of tourism market and the needs for local society. But I can state that today, sustainable tourism is based on 4 basic group of stakeholders in the destination. We saw that on the case of Mali Lošinj, is certainly public and private sector, local population, and tourism. And it requires, I will say, cooperation, understanding, and coordination between the interests and behavior of all stakeholders. And I would say that the main goal is to preserve the social cultural identity of the local community, but also to improve the quality of life and its well-being on one side, and on the other side, it has to improve the quality of tourist experience through the development of high quality tourist products and services, and all that with preserving the resources for long-term and future generations. It's very hard to pronounce and even harder to achieve. The core of the concept of sustainable tourism are indicators. What are indicators and why they are important? They are quantitative and qualitative data. You saw it before, and they alert on the changes of certain factors which are relevant to the tourism development. So they in fact serve as a tool for decision making and destination destination management. Finally, they enable measurement, monitoring, and controlling sustainable tourism development. So, in fact, they are key in achieving plans, development goals, and sustainable development. To simplify, if there are no sustainable tourism indicators, there will not be sustainable tourism. Very simple. We saw on the case of Mali Lošinj how they provide and how they implemented ETIS system, that's European Tourism Indicator System for Sustainable Destination Management. And today we have several relevant methodologies and systems for measuring and monitoring sustainable tourism. They are all actual and relevant, and everything started, I'll say, everything started with the methodology and the system of World Tourism Organization, which published a toolkit methodology 3 times. Like I said, they are relevant, but if we look up European Union and European destinations, more and more destinations are using ETIS system, and I will say that ETIS system is still in the phase of testing. If analyzing those several methodologies and systems, we can see that they have very in common. In fact, like I said, they are very actual, and destinations are using these methodologies and possible indicators, and they combining according to the goals, to the goals of the tourism development. Some of destinations also use index or composite indicator, which is in fact combination of several indicators. So as you can see, these indicators act and they provide, they indicate some pressures like drivers or state or pressures, impact or response. These are fields which are in common for them, as you can see, and you also saw for Mali Lošinj, which is important: impact of tourism, intensity and seasonality, employment, satisfaction of tourists and local community, tourism development, protection, etc., etc. So wherever tourism destination choose any of system or every system, they can combine according to their goals and according to their tourism development. To conclude this section, I will say that in last 30 years, minimal is done, especially on the global scale, but on the local scale and on the local community, there are a lot of good practices for in implementation of the concept of sustainable tourism. Regarding the usage of the tourism indicators and methodologies, I will say that still there is a lack of unique system of sustainable tourism indicators which would measure, monitor and compare, like benchmarking, the development of tourism destination. And there is still problem with the data which are needed for calculating indicators of sustainable tourism. They are often discontinuous and incomplete. For example, in Croatia, there is no unique system for measuring and monitoring sustainable tourism, and there is no let's say law obligation that some of organization have to collect these data. So sometimes we have discontinuous incomplete data, or some of data are not for public, etc., etc. There are a lot of other constraints for the implementation of the concept, like the lack of understanding the concept, lack of development plans, insufficient involvement or different stakeholders, especially local authorities, etc., etc. However, there are a lot of good practices all around the globe. I put some of them. These are programs which are still working, and every program has its award. I will just mention Sustainable Seattle, which was a pioneer in providing methodology and indicator system for the Seattle. Like I said, they are still working and the program is still in progress. With that program, they want to assure the quality of life for their inhabitants. It's the same for London Quality of Life. There are other programs and projects like the European Green Capital Award or Smart Cities Communities, which are working in different fields. Just to conclude that every town, every city, every place in destination try to be different and try to find its niche to find a path to sustainability. So they want to be sustainable in fragment, in special field. It's almost the same with the global initiative C40 cities. As you can see here, there are a lot of cities which want to be different and which want to provide sustainable living for them inhabitants. For example, with reduction of CO2 emissions, to be efficient in transport, infrastructure, and etc. And to finish this one, and to be precise with tourism, there are two good examples of good practice. One of it's certainly Mali Lošinj, but please do not, we have to mention Barcelona in Spain, because this is the first city with the certificate of sustainable and responsible tourism, because they want, the city want to give back the city to inhabitants because of the many negative impacts in the destination. So I suppose I have to finish. I try to be very quickly, and I hope that it's rather clear why it's important to use tourism indicators in order to manage destination and the impacts of tourism. Okay, thank you very much. I should be a moderator, so yeah. Okay, I think we have 15 more minutes for presentation of Mrs. Izidora Marković Vukadin. Please, Izidora, continue with your presentation.
Just a second. Once again, good afternoon to everybody. We went to afternoon now, from morning to afternoon. And thank you for participating on this webinar. I would like to thank also my colleagues Katarina and Tomislav for a good introduction and a great example of a good practice. I would like to present to you our project, which is called CROSTO, Croatian Sustainable Tourism Observatory, which is a project of Institute for Tourism and the Ministry of Tourism and Sport, through which we have tried to, we are still trying to answer some things that Tomislav has now said in his lecture. For example, there is a need for one methodology which can be done in all destinations in Croatia, and since that is the fact that is lacking, we have tried to do it through our project, long-term project, which is mostly focused on the methodology, which I'm going to say something about, which should be simple to use to other destinations, and try to attract more and more managements in the destinations to get involved. Of course, this is not ever a simple task, so we are struggling for last 4 years, but some destinations have been involved and are participating in the project, and you will see further on in my presentation. Of course, when we started with this project, we were aware that even though there's a great number of new projects, especially European projects such as Mitomed, which Katarina has been speaking about, like the estimate and so on, there is still, unfortunately, on the lower level of management level of destinations, a lack of awareness of the need for the measurement of sustainability of tourism. Since there is no need for this awareness, some actions which can be good and awareness that is arising from it is not followed following the desires needed, and the progress and actions are often unknown. Has some action we have done in our destination done something positive? Actually, very often we don't know it. Of course, through simple indicator systems, we cannot know all the answers, but we can try to find out some of them and try to make a a preliminary base out of which we will know more answers that we knew than before. As I told on the first slide, we are not so much focused, since we are not measuring for some one destinations on the results, but on the process, which we're trying to make more user-friendly, and through our actions, I hope that in the end it will work out like that. Concerning that, indicators are not a one moment in time, but they are a process that has to be done through more years. We are trying to also learn how to, for example, collect baseline data. We are trying to measure our progress of destinations and progress of us as developers of the indicators. We are trying to make a database which will which will be a base from which everybody will be able to benchmark themselves. We are also trying to adopt, especially through interdisciplinary teams, which are the existing data, and try to adopt them in existing systems to reflect what are the realities on the territorial level. Since we have first started measuring sustainability of tourism on a regional level, we have very soon concluded that we can proceed with that process, but destination level is the level where the indicators must be gathered, since on the regional level, as you will see in some data, you get a very fuzzy picture which does not give you quite good answers. Is something sustainable or not? Also, we are trying to the process learn how to use indicators to avoid jargon, to show some good example, exploit the media. This is a part of the project which is just coming on. We are still not involved so much in it. We are still trying to have a quite clear methodological picture how the sustainability data should be gathered. And of course, in the end, upscaling of indicators is always necessary. Katarina has been talking somewhat about it, where not all indicators gathered through ETIS are really useful always. Some of them more or less, but reskilling the staff is also quite important, and setting the targets we wish, because without targets we can go wherever we want. So in our example, we have started the Sustainable Tourism Observatory, CROSTO, as a part of the UNWTO network, which is actually a network of 28 observatories for sustainable tourism development in the world. UNWTO is giving us support, but unfortunately, there is no quite clear indicator list we should use. Each observatory can select indicators we wish to measure, and therefore we have started with the ETIS again as our baseline list, since in the end we are a part of European Union, and that is the best, in my opinion. Of course, that should not be your opinion, but one of the best lists that do exist and which is very useful. Of course, we could not start this project alone. We have started in cooperation with the Ministry of Tourism and Sports, also with Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, of course, with Croatian Bureau of Statistics and the Croatian National Tourism Board. In the end, of course, regional and destination level was also included through the counties and some destinations. These are some benefits we hope that in the end the measuring of tourism will have. They do not occur, of course, in the start of the process. The process can be quite long, especially if you're trying to involve as many destinations as possible. Perhaps on a one destination level, the process is quite quicker, but when you are trying to handle more destinations, the process is longer. So the best result for now that we have found out about in our destination is that in the end, if you start to gather data and gather indicators, cooperation of stakeholders in destination is highly increased, since people start to communicate, those people that have not communicated before. Of course, these all benefits should all get into one point of improving the quality of life of local community and environment, of course, and enhance the quality of guest experience. Here is the list of the 15 core indicators that we try to gather and measure. They are divided in 4 main areas: economic indicators, social indicators, environmental indicators, and spatial indicators. And they are actually not our new list. They are a list derived out of ETIS and UNWTO mandatory issues that we had to tackle since we are an INSTO observatory. I'm not going to now go through each of them. You will get the presentations, but I'm going to show you some examples later on. What about the process? We, as I already told you, started from the regional level, from the county level for 7 counties of the Adriatic Croatia, where we have gathered the 15 core indicators. And in 1 year, we have concluded that those data are okay, good, but not sufficient. Therefore, we have started involving some preliminary destinations, such as Mali Lošinj was very involved even before, Dubrovnik, Hvar, Novalja, and Rovinj, which have in 2 years gathered all the indicators. Through that process, we have learned quite a lot about what are the needs to have a simple process which each destination could follow. The first need we have spotted is the need for the guidebook for measuring of local level, which we have done 1.5 years ago, in which every indicator we are gathering is described through the giving the description, but also where to gather the data, how to calculate it if it's a composite indicator, and in the end, which are the possible obstacles that can occur. Also, we gave through the guidebook the examples of the preliminary research that can be done, such as surveys of local population, surveys of tourists, with the survey examples given, and also with some notice about how the survey should be conducted, who should conduct it, on what sample, and so on. It can never be as detailed as when you do the real statistic for each destination, but it gives some main aspects what to do. Also, yesterday we had a workshop concerning that. We have tried to do the applications which should simplify also the element of gathering the data. Once you do the survey, we have heard from our destinations, there is a problem with how to get to the finished indicator, how to calculate the data, which which perhaps sound pretty simple, but needs to have their applications through which you can get some finished indicators. That elements we have now tried to develop, and the last thing we are going to try to develop through this project is the base where each destination which is included in the project could put their data in, obvious to other destinations that are involved, and in the end to compare themselves. This what I'm talking about is I think it's a good intention from us and from the ministry, but in the end, when it's only intention, unfortunately it is not long-term very widely presented by the other destinations, since if you don't have somebody like Katarina who is very enthusiastic about about indicators and their impacts it can have on sustainability in destinations, most of the destinations do not go further on. Therefore, I also would agree with Tomislav, who told us that if there is no mandatory level where you must gather indicators in Europe or in Croatia and other countries, of course, that we will never have comparable systems for a long time more. This is a slide which is showing us the measurement process. We have tried to gather this process for destinations to make the gathering of the data as simple as possible. The first point is to appointment a local coordinator, who is a person who is in charge for developing measuring in the destination, and also working group who helps the local coordinator. Of course, it would be good to have some internal educations how to gather, and in the end, those are the steps that have to be done before the implementation of the measurement. In the end, I must say that the annual report of measuring sustainability of tourism is something which should be presented to the government of the city or the region where it's done, so they can in the end create the actions, because gathering the data without the actions is also a lot of work without a purpose in the end. Here are some examples. This is for 2018. Some social indicators such as local community satisfaction with tourism development in two regions, Primorsko-Goranska County and Dubrovnik-Neretvan County, compared to the Mali Lošinj and Stone destinations, how these elements vary from the regional to the local level. You can see, for example, in Dubrovnik-Neretva County, local community is 85% satisfied with the tourism development, but on the local level in Stone, only 60% of the respondees was satisfied. In environmental indicators, those differences are even more obvious. For example, if we take Ličko-Senjska County for water consumption, this is the this part of the diagram, where you can see their water consumption is quite low, considering the water consumption of tourists compared to the consumption of permanent residents. But in Novalja, it's quite large, since it's the most developed destination in this county. So it's quite important to go on destination level and try to measure. Why I have not really discussed why only 15. It's not enough, of course, but we have tried to go with the small numbers of indicators, so it can be a positive start. And further on, other destinations can, of course, take other indicators from ETIS or make their own indicators if they are creative, and try to measure them further on. Here are some challenges of the measurement process we have gone through now. The availability of data is the first challenge. Availability of secondary data, but also of the primary data, which costs some money, costs some human resources. Also, there is some needs to slightly modify some indicators in different destinations. We cannot say that all destinations are the same, therefore there are destinations who are seasonal or not seasonal, and considering that some modifications must be done. Also, one of the challenges of the measurement process is to have the unified list of core indicators, which will be applied by each observatory in UNWTO network. And in the end, there is always a need for fine-tuning of indicators in order to redefine the scope of some indicators. Perhaps some indicators are not valid or not necessary for the destination, so fine-tuning is always quite a good step that should be done. And for the end of this presentation, what is next? Currently, we are trying to include the new destinations process. For now, we have 12 new destinations that in Croatia have done have said they want to be included in the process. Hopefully, there will be more. Also, we are planning to design specific indicators for each destinations, and especially for protected areas, which have to be observed in a different manner. Also, I told you that we are designing a base for data collection. And in the end, we have those last two bullets we have done, the manual for measurement and applications for surveys. So those are things that we are doing or will be done in the next year or two. And hopefully that the measurement process in Croatia will finally get a bit more lively and develop through other destinations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Izidora. I would like to add something. Last year, we have finished the project in Oxenia. We worked all together with Italy and Greece, and one of the results was to create a base of tourism indicators. And unfortunately, we could not create a base because we didn't have many of data for calculating the indicators. So I will say that after that, for Zadar, city of Zadar and Zadar County, we did 2 or 3 meetings in order to, let's say, join the CROSTO group, all in order to create our own methodology and tourism indicators. We had to start with this year, but unfortunately, because of the COVID, we didn't proceed. But obviously, we will try it, and I hope next year we will continue with that thought. Okay, may I ask Katarina and Izidora? First, Katarina, how many indicators do you use in Mali Lošinj? Just to repeat.
Yes, so when we first started, there were like 130, which were from ETAs directly, like something over 50 or 60. And then we wanted to also measure some kind of local indicators through these educational institutions, port authority, police, and everything. And then during these 5 years of measuring all these indicators, we wanted to reduce, because it's not important to measure, it's not the quantity, it's the quality, right? Yeah. So yes, so we now are about 25, and we will keep measuring this 25, and we will probably try to bring some new indicators that we want to, that's for our destinations, such as the diversification of flora, then dolphins, and everything which is for our destination specific.
Okay.
That is my also advice to other destinations who would like to begin with this process, that it's very important to have these core indicators, because they are more or less for all destinations similar. But then in the end, they have to choose some indicators that are for their destinations, like this one-day visitors that we don't measure, because they really have small percentage in our arrivals, but in other destinations, in Dalmatia, Dubrovnik, or elsewhere, they have bigger impact. So they should measure that kind of indicator for their destination.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what about the problems during the implementation? I mean, how did you succeed to convince the local community that you are doing good job? You know, that sustainability is a good brand, let's say, for the community and for the destination.
Yes, well, the biggest problem is to start, of course, and to introduce the public opinion in what is sustainability. That's some kind of words that are so now common, and everybody are talking about that, but they really don't know what it actually means. And the communication between private and civil stakeholder is the key. And then transparency, mostly. We started to host also some kind of conferences on that theme. We started to collect data with these surveys for local and for tourists. And always we have some kind of PR on what we have done until far, so that everybody can read about that. And then it just came along the years that it started to be recognized, something like that, I would say.
Okay, I have a question for Izidora, but you explained us about the problems regarding the data. What about the recommendations? You said that you have several destinations in testing phase. Did you have any recommendation for them, and did they adopt it? Do they understand what do you mean about?
Well, that is perhaps not a question for me, but for destinations. But okay, yeah, we are trying to communicate with them in this. Actually, those recommendations are sort of built in the guidebook. Mm-hmm. So we saw what are the main problems with the measurement process, where the main problems are always the availability of data, of course, but the recommendations is then to have a local coordinator that is perhaps or enthusiastic, or somebody who is in the position to say you have to get me those data. For example, a deputy mayor or some person who has the position of the power. So it's easier to gather the data when you have somebody like that included in the process. Of course, one of the recommendations is that you need to have the impact on the sustainability, not only through data. You will get some indicators in the end, but you have to explain to the destinations what do those indicators mean. It is quite hard to do it if you have only 1 year of indicators, because often it is not very smart to compare two different destinations, especially if they are different in size, in demand, in the type of tourism and so on. So the best way to compare is what is Lošinj doing, to compare number of years to see where are they going. Therefore, we are trying to convince them to do it through a few years. Of course, you will not do in each year a survey of tourists because it's timely, expensive and cost expensive, but you can do it every 2 or 3 years. So you will get some informations. And in the end, there are some kind of secondary data that can be interpreted for some destinations. For example, Katarina also mentioned the Thomas survey considering the attitudes of the local population that you can use if you have an example which is representative. So there are quite a lot of things that can be done. And in the end, indicators, I would say, are only the first step. After the indicators, perhaps the second step for some destinations, especially those burdened with the high number of tourists, not in 2020, but in other years, would be the carrying capacity determination. Indicators are actually a tool for carrying capacity determination. Of course, if you have such a great number of indicators like Lošinj has, then you will get easier in that process, even though in the end, it's obvious that some other indicators are always requested. But okay, you will have a starting point to do the carrying capacity measurement. And after you do the carrying capacity, you can go on the applications of the measures, especially applications concerning these spatial impacts of tourism, where to build further, how to communicate with the spatial development planners and so on. So those are some elements that can be done.
Very well. And could this COVID situation, could it be a start position for measuring and for carrying capacity, let's say, approach?
Yes, I believe it could be, it should be, since there was no tourists, so all consumption of water or electricity and so on was done by the local population. So yeah, it can be zero, let's say that.
In some destination.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope everybody enjoyed our session, our webinar. We had more than 100 participants. Izidora, Katarina, do you want to add something at the end of this webinar?
I will say just short. I hope that these all people listening to us, some of them will contact us through email, Tomislav, Katarina, or me, and try to pursue sustainability through the indicators.
Yes, I just also wanted to say thank you once again to the organizers that invited us, and to the participants. Hope they enjoyed, learned something new, or maybe got some idea for their future steps. And of course, we're here for further communications through email, phone call. It's no problem.
Yes, then I will conclude this webinar. We didn't have any specific question. So I also want to thank the organizers. I hope you enjoyed and that we had the real purpose of this webinar. I wish you all the best, and I hope that we will see each other in better conditions, not online.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will be in touch, Izidora and Katarina. Thank you for your participation.